Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Sam and this is The Lonely Chapter, a show where we speak to interesting people, finding out their stories, discovering what motivates them, whilst also learning from their highs and their lows. Today we are learning from Raffaella Di Palma. She works as a personal trainer, encouraging and inspiring people to become more confident both inside and outside of the gym. Expect to learn how she got into the fitness industry, what she's learned from moving to a different continent, and how grief has shaped her perspective moving forward. Thank you for listening. This one was made for your enjoyment. Tell me a bit about your journey into fitness. Was it something you always had a passion for?
Absolutely not. Was never ever on the cards for me, fitness. If you ask anyone that I went to school with, they would probably say that they never ever imagined to see me doing this. I just never did any sport at school. I was always on the bench in any sport that I had to do because I had to do it. And then I met my now husband, and he was really into fitness. He was always going to the gym, and I was like, right, okay. At the time, I was studying drama and film, so I was dancing. We had movement in our curriculum. And he was just always going to the gym, so I was like, right, let me go and get involved in this. And that's how I got into it. I just started going with him. He started teaching me everything that I basically know. And yeah, I just kept going with him, kept learning new things, kept pushing myself in the gym, and then obviously you start falling in love with it, right? Everyone says to you, once you start going to the gym so much, you're going to get the bug, you'll get the bug. I just wasn't that girl, and then it started happening, and I was like, right, okay. And then we were approached in South Africa by this massive guy in the gym, and he was like, I think you guys would be really cool if you competed.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, Brandon was like, yeah, I'm keen. And I was like, absolutely not. What does that even mean? And he was like, no, a bodybuilding show, like, it's in 6 weeks. We're like, surely that's not enough time. He was like, nah, you'll be fine. Anyway, so he coached us. We were like, right, let's just do it. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? We did it, and yeah, we competed. I saw how my body transformed, how diet and just exercising correctly. I say correctly in hindsight, looking back at what we did, the diet was terrible. If I had to do it again, I would get a better coach, I would do things better. But at the time, it was really cool, like seeing how our body changed, being in that world, being on stage, competing for the very first time. Yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then, yeah, that was it. Then I was head in all the way, and that was it.
Wicked.
Yeah.
So how long was it between starting the gym and then that first competition?
So I started in the gym when I was in uni, and then maybe like 3 years into fitness, or 2 years. Not long, actually. Yeah, it
Quite
wasn't
fast,
long.
yeah.
It was really fast.
Awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And stepping into the gym the first time can be like scary for anyone. I suppose having Brandon there with you, taking you through it at the start, was quite helpful. What was it like for you getting into the gym that first time?
Yeah, it was terrifying. I just remember being like, I do not belong here. It's so intimidating, especially as a woman, going into the weight section and just seeing all these massive guys there. At that time, obviously, there weren't a lot of women in the gym. There are more today, which is really awesome. But at that time, there were only a few. And if you were in the weight section, it was like, right, okay, what are you doing here kind of thing. Most women would just be like in the cardio section or in the studio on their own. So yeah, it helped having Brandon there, obviously. I mean, I used to just nag him all the time, like, what does this do? What am I doing? What muscle am I working? At the end, he'd be like, oh my gosh, please. But yeah, it really helped having him there. But I just remember like not even knowing what to wear when I would go. Like, I'd be like, I don't even have any, like, what do people wear to the gym? I remember just wearing like random clothes and stuff. Obviously now I found my style, and, I found my way in the gym, and I'm really confident in the gym now. But I always, whenever I bring in new clients, especially women, and they're really scared their confidence is so low coming into the gym, the weight section just intimidates women, especially. And I just remember back to my time being exactly the same.
Yeah.
But it's just about becoming more comfortable and actually knowing what you're doing. And that helps, walking in and having a plan and knowing exactly what to do really, really helps.
Yeah, for sure. And touching on what you said there about like women in the gym, obviously, since you started, I imagine a lot of women have started going into the weightlifting side of the gym at least. But you still hear a lot of people say, I don't want to get too bulky, or I don't want to put on too much muscle, I don't want to look like a man. Why do you think that myth is still going around, and how do you think we can sort of counter that and get more women in the weight section?
Yeah, so I hear this a lot, like on a daily basis. I think it has a lot to do with, obviously now there's a lot of things going on around on social media, but in a good way it helps, and in certain ways it doesn't really help much. But I think it's just something that's been going around for so long, especially in the older generations, like in my dad's age group, that women you weren't supposed to be in the gym. Like, that wasn't a thing. So I think that's just like spiraled, and people have just carried it with them, that if women train and lift weights or lift heavy things, they're going to look like a man, which is totally not true. Like whenever clients come to me and they're like, I want to be toned, but I don't want to look like a man, I always stop and I say, okay, right, do I look like a man? And then they're like, oh my God, no, you don't look like a man.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, okay. So I've been training for 10 years. If it was that easy, literally, like I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
And secondly, like it's physically impossible for a woman to look like a man without using other substances, etc., etc. Like we don't have enough testosterone. We're just not built for that. And then I say to them, so you want to be toned. What does that mean to you? And then they obviously start saying, like, obviously I want to have, like, look like I have stronger arms. I want stronger legs. I want a bum, etc. Then I'm like, right, so that's muscle. That's building muscle.
Yeah.
Being toned means that you've put on muscle, right? You've grown muscle. You've changed the way your body looks. I think it's important for women to realize that they're definitely not going to look like a man, and that lifting weights is super important, especially for women, especially as you get older, for our bone structure, etc. It's so important. But also, obviously, for the aesthetic purpose, some people, you want to look good, you want to feel good. That toned look is going to come from lifting weights. It's not going to come from running on the treadmill, You can run as much as you can, but you're not going to look that toned way. I hate saying toned, but
you're losing the fat, but you're not gaining the muscle to have that shape you want.
Exactly. So, and then when I start training my clients and I have all these things on their plan, like bicep curls, that's the worst one for women. They're like, but I don't want big biceps like a man. And I'm like, do you think I have big biceps like a man? And they're like, no. I'm like, right, so this is what's going to get you that toned look that you want in your arms, Or they'll say, like, I want skinny arms. And I'm like, what does that mean? What do you mean you want skinny arms? And then they'll show me a picture and it's this beautiful woman with amazing muscular arms. And I'm like, right, okay.
Lean arms.
So I always ask women to show me a picture of their dream body aesthetically, right?
Yeah, that's a good approach.
And then I'm like, right, okay, so I know exactly what you want, So I think it's just something that stemmed from older generations when women weren't supposed to be in the gym, and women have just carried it with them, because even like when I started training and I told my dad that I was going to do this bodybuilding competition, he was like, but what do you mean you're going to look like a man? So I'm like, no, I'm not going to look like a man. And every time I would go home from like, because I studied in South Africa and I'm from Zimbabwe, so I'd go home for the holidays and he'd be like, he'd like squeeze my arm and he'd be like, don't get too bulky. And I'm like, Dad, what does that even mean? Like,
Yeah.
So I think it's something that's just come from older generations, and I think it's important for women to realize that it's completely untrue.
Yeah. And I think if women who thought that way went up to most men in the gym and asked them, how long they've been training, how many supplements they've taken, how many calories a day they shovel in just to gain like the smallest bit of muscle they can. With the added testosterone, it's so difficult to build muscle.
Literally, that's what also something that I say. I'm like it takes years and years to get to that position. It doesn't just happen overnight, first of all. And yeah, like you said, so many supplements, so many different things that are added into just training, you know?
Yeah. At what point did it become something that you considered that you could then change into your career? So it went from just training to maybe I can actually make a living out of this.
So I came over to London and I actually started working in an office. So I have a degree in drama and film. That's what I came over to London to do. And obviously it's really hard to get into that industry. I started working in an office when I got here just because it was the first job that I could get and we needed stability, right? And I just hated being stuck behind a desk. I was like, this is not for me. I'm not about this life. I'm also, I like to be really active. I like to be moving all the time. And so I was like, what do I really enjoy? They always say you should do something that you really, really love, right? So it doesn't feel like work. I was like, what do I really enjoy? Obviously, it was my acting and all of that stuff, but that's really hard to get into. So I was like, I really love fitness. People started seeing that my body was changing and that I was really enjoying it. I was always going. Sometimes I was going into the gym like twice a day, which was, and I'd be like, what am I actually doing? Like I could be helping people with this. People started asking me for help. And I was like, well, I'm not really qualified to give you any advice. Yeah. Even though I kind of know what I would help you with, but I don't really have any backing to it. And I thought, well, let me just study it and start helping people with it. Start helping people that were like me, for instance, like I said in the beginning, a woman scared to be in the gym, So yeah, that's how I thought, well, let me just study it and become a PT. Yeah.
And what was it like for you starting out once you'd got your qualification, going into doing PT? Because it's an industry where it's a slow burner, I suppose. It's quite difficult to get started, and a lot of PTs do drop out early because you're just not making enough money just to break even, let alone make like actual money to like profit. So how did you sort of fight that? How did you work through that time?
Yeah, I remember just like when I first started working in the industry, it was rent. I've never been I've never been employed by a gym. I've always been self-employed, which is even harder, right? Because then, you have to have the clients, otherwise there's no money coming in. I started network marketing, which basically is direct selling, and I was selling supplements. I got into that with my sister, and so I had this extra income coming in on that side of things, and I thought, well, that will pair nicely with what I'm doing as a PT. So I also obviously had Brandon, who obviously had an income coming in. He was working as a landscaper at the time, and so he just said, like, just go for it and see what happens, basically. Most gyms, when you start out, they give you like 1 or 2 months rent free so that you can pick up clients. And I just remember just asking the current PTs, like, any advice that you have for me? And most of them said, like, just be here all the time and just show your face. And, I remember training with my shirt on that said PT, just so that people would see you around. Social media now obviously helps a lot because you can post your client videos, etc. But yeah, building a client base was really hard in the beginning. But obviously having Brandon and obviously having my direct selling on the side, it helped a lot with the income side of things. And then once I was qualified as a PT and working in the field, I then became a carer. So I was doing care work on the weekend. So that was basically Monday to Friday I was PTing, and then my Saturday and Sunday job was employed. So I had that income coming in all the time. So I knew that, okay, my rent and my bills were paid, And then anything that I had coming in during the week with PT was, going into savings or supplementing, whatever,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's, busy weeks then.
Yeah.
You mentioned it a few times in there as well. So social media, obviously in the last 15 years or so, that's been a massive thing that's just grown and grown. And especially within the fitness industry, there's so many people out there now putting their take on everything. What do you make of the current state of the fitness industry on social media in particular?
So, I mean, there's two sides of it, right? I'm on social media in the fitness space. I think it really, really helps me as a fitness professional to grow my following and to grow my client base. And a lot of my clients do come from my Instagram, because basically I will post my client videos or my client results or my own results on my Instagram, and my gym will reshare it. So anyone that's at the gym will see it on their page, which is really nice. So that helps. But then there's the other side of things where you have these people, which I found out the other day, which is really, it blew my mind, that you can become an online coach without actually being qualified. Which I was like, wait, so I studied this whole time.
Online coach in quotations,
online coach. I'm like, right, okay, so what? So there's people out there, obviously, that are online posing as these online coaches or fitness professionals and looking the part, but not actually knowing what they're doing or how to help anybody. And they have this massive following and they look good. So then people that are coming into it that don't really know what they're doing will see this, okay, well, she's got a really good body. She's got 1 million followers or whatever. She must know what she's talking about. And then she's like making you do silly things, or putting you on 1,000 calories a day or something silly, or not even helping you with any of that. And then you have someone who is qualified, who's been in the industry for years and years, has actual life experience in it, who's been skinny or overweight and then transformed with not as many followers, and then they're like, well, I'd rather go with that person kind of thing. So I think that's where it's not really, it doesn't really help. Also, a lot of people will post things on social media that look good, or like exercises that, I see it a lot in the gym. I see girls doing things and I'm like, I know you've seen that on Instagram because I've seen that on Instagram or TikTok. And it's a silly exercise, and I'm like, you don't need to be doing that. You can do it this way, and it's the exact same thing.
Push-ups on plates and stuff.
Silly things like that,
Yeah.
And I won't say that I've never ever done those, because in the beginning I did do those sort of things. You see these exercises and they're like, do this to grow your bum or do this or whatever. And I've done them as well. But now, you come from a place of actually knowing.
Yeah, science-backed.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said in your sort of first bit, where when you were in the gym before you got your qualification, because your body was developing, people started to notice that and people start to ask you for advice because you look that way.
Yeah.
So that shows that they just expect you to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And whilst you know what's worked for you, everyone's different. And that's the bit that gets lost, I think, is people train themselves to look a certain way, and they train well to get there, fair play to them. But then the people they're coaching, again in quotations, are different people.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one. I think there needs to be a bit more checking on that.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, in terms of like nutrition side of things, I'm not a nutritionist. I only know what I know through my PT course, and obviously experience and whatever. But you see all these things online as well, like all these fad diets and do this and, drop this belly fat and target this and target that. And, when you actually in it, you're like, that's not true. You can't do that.
You can't target.
You can't just target your belly fat. You can't just target this, that, and the next thing. And I get it a lot. I'll get clients in that say, I just want to lose my belly. And I'm like, okay, well, that's going to come with, everything else. Or And you see these people online. I think, what's his name? I think he's like the fitness chef or something.
Right.
He's really funny. He makes videos like a crushed up banana is the same calories as a whole banana, because I think it's like some Weight Watcher thing where you get like one full banana is like 100 sins or whatever, and then a crushed banana is fine. And he's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So there are people there that are like teaching you and opening your eyes to these sort of things, but then there's the people that are doing the opposite, you know? So I think it's just about actually knowing who you're watching and knowing and like doing your research and knowing who actually knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I think look into the person and make sure that they've got some form of credentials behind them, because I think anyone can open an account if they look good and say stuff and people will follow it. And like you say, when people are new to it, they just go along with it. So again, something you mentioned earlier about moving over to the UK, you moved over in 2016. So what sort of led to that decision, and what was that like for you coming over?
So I left. I lived here before 2016 for a year, which I only realized last night that I had done.
Okay.
I remembered. So basically, I left school when I was 18. I went to live in Portugal with my sister. And then I moved over to London for a year. It was kind of like it wasn't supposed to be a gap year. I was never going to go and study. And then I realized, wait, I'm not ready for this life. I'm going to go back and study. Yeah. So I went back to South Africa and studied, and then came in 2016. Yeah. So in 2016, Brandon and I, who's my husband, we're both from Zimbabwe. It's not really somewhere where you will stay. Everyone knows that when you turn 18, you're either going to go to uni or you're going to leave and go and work somewhere in the rest of the world, because the economy is just not good, which is really sad because it's a really nice place and obviously it's home. My mom still lives there with my stepdad. So I had been studying, Brandon had been studying and working, and we just were kind of like, okay, I've got my degree now, what are we going to do? I'm on an Italian passport from my dad. Brandon's on South African. He's actually British now. He got his British citizenship. So,
awesome.
But at the time he was South African, and we were like, where can we go where we can actually, work, earn some actual money and make a life? Before Brexit, England was the easiest place for me to get into with the Italian. And because we had been living together for more than 2 years, we basically qualified as an unmarried couple. Mm-hmm. So we were able to come over here, basically. So it was like just the one place where we could come.
Right, okay.
So that was it. We were like, right, let's go before Brexit, because there were the talks of Brexit. I remember my brother saying to me, you need to go like immediately if you're going to go. Because
I suppose the referendum had happened by that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he was like, you need to go with the passport and be there and work. So I was like, right, okay. But I had already been here a year. So I already had the bank account. I already had everything that I would have needed. Which really helped. So that's why we came over. And then, what was the rest of your question? Sorry.
That's all right. Just what was it like for you settling in? Yeah.
Really hard. Yeah, really, really hard to come over. Obviously, leaving home and leaving everything and coming to a completely different continent, completely different culture, lifestyle, weather, everything's different. So it wasn't easy at all. It's still some days where it's not easy. It's still really hard. But it's been a great opportunity for us. We would have never been able to do what we're doing now if we had stayed. I also want to go back to what I said in the beginning about people leaving Zimbabwe as soon as you turn 18. Some people go back, which is really nice. We would love to go back and raise a family there. It's such a nice place. But if you don't have enough money to do that, you just can't live there. You have to go back with money. Yeah. So, it's a bit of a sticky situation if you don't have enough to go back and live.
What do you think the hardest part about moving over was, if there's one thing?
I think leaving family behind. I have 3 siblings. Brandon has 1. And we all literally live in different countries. So my sister lives in Portugal. Brandon's sister lives in Australia. My brother lives in Johannesburg in South Africa, and my other brother lives in Cape Town. So we're literally all in different places. And my mom lives in Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
So I think the hardest part is just being away from family during important times, sad times, anytime really. We got married last year, and that was the first time the whole family had been together since 6 years before that, which was my dad's funeral. So, it's just like tragedy or celebration is the only thing that brings you together, which is quite sad.
Yeah.
And then you see other families that have left but still are able to go and see each other on all the nice occasions, like birthdays. For instance, my nephew turned 1, and you miss that, right? You miss out on those sort of things. Whereas, and then you see other families being able to do it, but they, come from money, or they, whatever the case is. So yeah, I think that's the hardest part, not being together when other families are together.
Yeah.
For instance,
sure.
Brandon and I have been in UK now 8 years. 7 Christmases, it has just been him and I, because everyone we know here is either with their family or they've gone home. So it's literally just been him and I on Christmas Day, and then my siblings and his sibling, they all have kids, which make Christmas, right? So for him and I, it's just another day. We just cook lunch and then we're like, Merry Christmas. Yay.
Just sit and watch some TV, have a drink.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just stuff like that, really, like just missing out on, and not seeing nieces and nephews grow up.
Yeah.
Not being there for important things. My niece is 14 now. We are really close, but you just miss out on things like that, not meeting nephews until they're 2 or 3 or 4,
Yeah, 100%. It must be difficult.
Yeah.
To put a positive spin on it, I suppose, what was the best thing about moving over?
I think the best thing about moving over was just all the doors that opened for us, all the doors of opportunity. Actually, making something of ourselves, making ourselves proud, making our family proud. Getting a British passport for Brandon. That was nice, because that opens more doors now, like in terms of traveling with visas, etc., like that, and property and all that stuff. Yeah, I think the opportunity and earning pounds, when you go back with pounds, it's really nice as well.
Yeah.
Because, you have proper money. The opportunity and the meeting new people, creating a life.
Yeah, especially London, I suppose, is like
really
such
good
a
opportunity.
big change, but the amount of opportunity here is phenomenal.
The weather's hard.
The
I would say
hard,
the weather. Every time I complain about the weather, my clients or my friends are always like, "But you moved here." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but it's so hard. Like, that's really hard for us." Coming over and from being in the sun 24/7 back home, even in winter, it's not that cold. For us, winter is hard, and everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you'll adjust." I'm like, I'm not really ever adjusting. It's still the same, still freezing. And then my mom or my brothers will be like, "Oh my God, it's so cold here today." And I'll check the weather and it's like 14 degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm like, seriously, guys?
Yeah.
You don't know what cold is.
No, that's not cold.
So
that's enough. That's enough heat for me.
Yeah.
I was chatting to a South African lady yesterday, and I was mentioning that I was going away this coming weekend to a place where it's going to be 30 degrees. And how I wasn't too pleased with that. And I promptly got told off by
her.
I'm
sure.
Yeah.
Oh God, we're going to Croatia next week, and I can't wait.
Awesome.
For some heat.
Yeah. So grieving is something that can be one of the toughest parts of being human. Everyone will go through it at some point. Can you talk to me a bit about your experience of it and what you've learned from it personally?
Yeah, so basically, when I was 16, I was dating a boy named Brandon, which is really weird because now I'm married to a guy named Brandon.
Not the same Brandon.
Not the same Brandon. Okay. He was probably like my first real boyfriend, and he died in a car accident. And I was 16, and basically just woken up one night by my dad to say that Brandon had been in a car accident. And that was when my grief started, right? Because you're so young, and then you lose this person who you think is like, you know, your first true love or whatever.
Yeah.
Or your friend or whoever. And it's really confusing because you're only 16, right? You're still learning about stuff. So that was, that's when it all started happening, and that starts shaping you or whatever. It's just weird, right? Grief is such a weird thing to be in, and you don't really know what it's like until you lose someone. Brandon always says to me, my husband Brandon, right? He always says to me, he doesn't really understand because he's never lost anyone close, or, you know, I mean, he's lost grandparents and stuff, but nobody really ever close. So you don't really understand. So anyway, that I think changed me when I was 16. So young, and, you know, having all these feelings like, what, you know, like, how am I ever going to live without him kind of thing? What am I going to do? Like, how do you even get over this? How am I ever going to even survive? And you survive, right? That's grief. You've got to just wake up and go, you know? And then about 7 years ago, my dad died. He basically was diagnosed with cancer. He had melanoma, which is skin cancer, and he got the small removed. And within 3 months, basically, it had spread to his brain. And by the time we all found it, or he found it, or at least we think this is when he found it, he had 7 tumors on his brain already. So it was too late, right? It was stage 4 already. And they always say, like, cancer has no name until it's someone that you know, because people can say to you, like, oh, my dad died of cancer, but you don't really, you know cancer is awful.
Yeah.
And you know, like, someone dying is awful, but you don't actually know until it happens to you. So basically, he was diagnosed with cancer. He died within 3 months of us finding out. We kind of do think that he knew before that and just didn't say anything to any of us, but we'll never know, obviously. That was hard because I was here in England. I remember getting the call from him saying, like, this is what's happened. And then literally from that day until I went back to South Africa, he had radiation. And then I came back, and then they said to him, basically, come back in 3 months and we'll see what's happened from the radiation, like how things have changed, etc. He didn't make it to those 3 months. My dad's wife at the time called us, and she was like, you guys need to come home. So we went home, and basically that's when he passed away. But within those 3 months, getting that first phone call from my dad and then that phone call from his wife, it's all literally just a blur. I think, you know, grief alters your brain and you start blocking out things. And I mean, it does. It alters your brain. It alters the way that you think and feel, etc. So that's all a blur to me. I don't know if I've blocked it out to protect myself or, you know, I don't know. But so that was that. And then a few months ago, so Brandon and I are trying to have a baby. A few months ago, I had a miscarriage. So that was also another bit of grief, you know, which is also really weird. It's not the same as losing somebody that's alive.
Yeah.
Right? You've never seen this baby.
Arguably, yeah.
You've had this feeling of like, okay, I have a baby, I'm pregnant, and then you're not pregnant anymore, but you've never met the baby. So it's weird, right? It's a different kind of grief. So that's also, you know, that's been hard. I've never actually spoken about this before, so
No, yeah. Well, thank you for being so open.
yeah. So that's been hard. Obviously, we've been trying to have a baby, not long, only a few months. So, and then also you touching on the miscarriage, you don't really know how many people have gone through that until you actually talk to people about it. And then women will say to you, oh yeah, I had one, or I had 3 or 2 or 3, you know. I think that's also something that I have wanted to talk about. I just haven't felt ready to, so that women can feel comfortable speaking about it and knowing that it does happen.
I think it's probably something that doesn't get spoken about.
Yeah,
And until you're in that moment, that's when you find people who surround you who have had the same experience. And same with the cancer. You don't really know people until that happens, and then you find all these people who have gone through very similar things, and you find those communities just dotted around, but they're there for that moment when you go through it, not really before.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also important to note that, like, some people don't really know how to handle grief with their friends or their family. I think it's really important to realize that we like talking about these people. Like, I like it when people ask me about my dad because I get to talk about him. I like it when people ask me, you know, what he liked, etc., because I get to talk about him again, which I don't get to do much because he's not around. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think some people are scared to because they feel really bad for you. And they're like, oh, I don't want to, you know, bring up those emotions. But it really helps to talk about them. It helps to keep them alive as much as you can, really. So I think it's important to know that if, like, one of your friends or your family is going through that, obviously figure out where they are at in their stage of grief, because there's so many different stages. But we do like talking about it. It really does help. So, yeah, and the same with the miscarriage. Like, I mean, I only told a handful of people about it, and obviously my clients, etc., because I was in hospital for a while when it was all happening. So I had to obviously tell them. But just from telling those few women, and, you know, even men, you know, mentioning, oh, my wife went through that, or, you know, my mom went through that, or my actual mom had 3 miscarriages. Then my sister had none. So I think it's just something that happens, really, and you have to get on with it. This is the thing with grief. You have to just get on with your life, which is also really sad, because you're like, but I'm going through this really painful thing and everything's just happening. Everything's just still carrying on around me, but I need to still just carry on, because what am I going to do? Just sit around? You know what I'm saying? So,
you know, the mechanisms that bring that thing into your life, or that make that scenario happen, it's out of your control. But the thing you can control is then your response to it, and how you move forward, and how you view that situation. And that's like moving forward. That's sort of how you look at it.
Exactly. And just finding, you know, obviously grief is so weird. It can come literally out of nowhere. Like, I feel like I can be, hey, I got this, I'm all good, and then I'll walk into a shop and my dad's song will be playing, and I'm like, oh my God, and then I burst into tears, you know, or I'm like, wow, this is cool, and then I sing along to it and I remember my dad, you know. It's completely different. Or I can just literally be at home and then think about my dad, or somebody will walk past me on the street and I'll smell his cologne. Or my dad used to smoke like a box of cigarettes a day, and the cigarette mixed with the cologne, like, someone will walk past me and I'm like, oh, it smells like my dad, and then it's really nice. Or when I go to the airport, I'll spray his cologne on me and then I'll smell him the whole time, you know what I'm saying?
Nice,
so it's just small things like that. But then there's obviously other moments in your life, like, for instance, we got married last year. He didn't get to walk me down the aisle, so that was a massive, you know, thing for me to overcome. My brother gave me away, which was really special. But obviously it's really hard, because that's something that, you know, I will never ever get to experience. He'll never meet my kids. So it's just like being able to actually come to terms with stuff like that, you know. But grief never ever goes away. So that's why I wanted to mention what happened to me at 16. I think that really, in a weird way, helped me get through or deal with my grief with my dad, because I was like, hey, I've been here before. even though it's not the same at all, it's two completely different people and, you know, scenarios, but grief is the same. I think it never really ever goes away. It's there all the time. It's just like this love that you have that, you know.
That's it, isn't it? It's the love that you never got to give
exactly.
in person, I suppose.
And it's just, it's just like lingering there. And then, it just never goes away. But you get stronger in a sense, or you just handle it better, I guess.
Yeah. And I like what you said about speaking about it. I think especially people who haven't lost someone close to them, and you sort of said Brandon was a bit like that. He's not too sure.
Yeah.
It can be quite difficult to know whether you should say something, whether not to. But hearing that, obviously, right at the start, there's probably not the time to do it. But as you move forward, you do want their memories to live on. You do want to be asked about them. You do want to remember the good times. So, yeah, that's a nice thing to do, and to like remind people of, to have those conversations.
Yeah, of course.
So you've mentioned Brandon throughout the whole thing, which is lovely. Now he gets his own question. So, yeah, you got married last year. How has it been having him throughout that journey of, obviously, you moved over together, and throughout everything you've been through, what's it been like to have someone?
Yeah, so Brandon and I have been together 11 years next week, actually. So we only got married last year. He took a long time to ask me to be his wife. But I always knew that I'd have to wait because he's 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So we won't say how old he was when I met him. But anyway, it was legal in Zimbabwe.
It was legal.
Okay? But yeah, basically he's been with me through... I mean, we've been with each other through so many changes, life changes. You know, you are a different person from your teens to your 20s into your 30s. He's not in his 30s yet. I'm still waiting for him to turn 30. I'm like, how are you still in your 20s? But I think we've been with each other for so long and we've been with each other through so many things. He was there with me, obviously, through my dad, moving over here, through my uni, through getting my degree. I was with him through everything he went through. So yeah, I think it's just, obviously, I mean, I don't know how I would ever have done anything without him. It really helps having that support system, even though, like I said, he says he doesn't know what I'm going through, but I'm here for you.
Yeah.
So that makes a massive difference, you know, like I can't really relate to what you're going through, but I'm here. So yeah, I think obviously it's been, I mean, I don't know what I would do without him.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really nice to have someone like that.
Yeah.
I just want to go back then in time, if you could go back in time. So if you could go back to the sort of start of, I suppose, your fitness journey, but maybe generalize it as well, and just give you back then one piece of advice, knowing what you know now.
What would I give myself advice? I would say I don't really care what people think about me, but obviously there's always that sort of kind of nervous and stuff. I think I would tell myself to just completely not care and just do what I want to do, and without, you know, they say like when you have an idea, it's obviously something that you need to go and do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Just go and do it. And if it fails, it fails.
Yeah, just try it.
Like, just, go and put your whole being into it and just try. Be consistent. In my fitness journey, I think, just like, don't care really what other people are thinking or doing or saying, and just focus on what you want to do and put that idea into motion. And obviously another piece of advice I would give myself would probably be to spend more time with my dad.
Yeah.
Call him.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, cool. Speak to people you love.
Yeah.
That's really nice. And I think they're speaking about in the gym especially as well, not caring about what other people are doing or how they're looking. Again, I think linking it back to social media that we spoke about at the start is something that I used to do was you'd look at the people online, you'd look at the people around you, and you'd see them making more progress or looking a certain way. And it's just a snapshot of that one photo. And when I came off social media, I felt so much better for it. And my experience in the gym changed as well, because I was just training for me and just looking at me versus me.
Yeah.
And I was more focused on performance training as opposed to like looking a certain way. So yeah, there was a lot of benefits in that as well. But yeah, not caring what people think is a great one, I think. And
yeah, I would say like stay in your lane basically. But obviously, like what you just said, imposter syndrome also comes to light when I think about what you just said. Like that's a massive thing in the industry, or in any industry really. You kind of always, you put yourself in there and you're like, wait, do I actually know what I'm doing? I think maybe just like, and that happens to me still so far into my career, and knowing what I know and all the experience. Some days I'm like, wait, what? Do I actually know what I'm doing? Like, how am I doing this? I think it's just like believing in yourself and believing
100%.
that you've got this and that you do know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And just, staying in your lane and just like.
Yeah. And I think to add on to that as well is everything that you do is adding to your list of evidence that you can do it. So on those days where you start to doubt yourself and you think, oh, am I actually like fit to say this? Can I say this? You look back in your scenario, you can look back at all your clients that you've trained and where they started to where they got to and go, yeah, actually I'm good at this and I know what I'm doing. So yeah, I've got this.
Yeah.
And you just keep building that evidence, and the more you build, obviously the more confident you get. But that imposter syndrome is always something that's going to be there.
Yeah.
I think. And it's just when it pops up, you just look at that evidence and go, no, go away, carry on.
Please stop.
Get out of my head.
I got this.
So what's next for you? What's your plans going forward? The business looks like it's going well. You've got some things going on social media as well. So what's the plan?
So just basically I've just qualified as a Pilates instructor.
Awesome.
So I just need to finish my theory side of things, and then I'm completely done with that. I just wanted to have something, obviously I want to keep learning about the industry and have something new to do all the time. But we are trying to have a baby, like I said before. So I thought it would be a really nice thing to have when I'm pre and when I'm post, and also going forth as a mom, helping, Pilates is really important for women especially, and men, but women for your pelvic floor, etc. So I thought that would be a really nice thing as a new mom, to be able to help other new moms or moms with their fitness, and Pilates is really important for that. So that's my plan, is to start some local classes. We already have Pilates classes at the gym where I am at, but introduce my own class there. And then, just continue helping women become more confident in the gym, and hopefully have a baby soon.
Yeah.
That'll be nice. We're still trying. So have a baby, and then, become parents, and life will change, I guess. Everyone keeps saying your life will completely change. But I think we're ready. And then our plan is to move to Portugal. So my sister lives there. We're done with this weather.
Yeah, we tried.
Yeah, we've served. Brandon got his passport, so he's a British citizen now.
Yeah.
So we can move.
Yeah.
We've done what we came for, basically.
Yeah.
My sister really loves it in Portugal. We really love it. That's where we got married. We go there all the time.
Yeah.
It's a lot like home in the sense of the lifestyle. It's very chilled compared to here. There's this the rat race. It's a lot. I come from a place in Zimbabwe where there's literally like 4 shops and 1 coffee shop and like 1 club that doesn't exist anymore, so I'm from a small place. I always thought I was a city girl, and then I moved to the city. I'm like, no, this is not for me. I want like a garden and, somewhere where our kids can run around. And I love the beach. We love it in Portugal. The weather is amazing, even when it's winter. My sister was swimming on New Year's Eve. Like, She's like, we're swimming. I'm like, well, we're freezing. So yeah, we want to move over there, but we haven't actually looked into what we would need or anything, but we're just assuming it will be fine.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
yeah,
Sounds
that's the
good.
plan.
Best of luck for everything.
Thank you.
I think that's a good place to end. So I just want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for being so open with everything you've spoken about. And hopefully people listening will take away as much as I have. In terms of finding you online, if you want to drop your Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at Raffaella Di Palma, and my TikTok is at Raffaella Flavia Di Palma, which is very long, but you can tag it in the. You
can find it. Yeah, I'll put it in the description for anyone to see.
And then Facebook is just Raffaella Di Palma. It's pretty much the same all over.
Sweet.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And anyone who wants to follow the podcast and see what we're up to on Instagram, it's at Lonely Chapter Podcast. And lastly from me, thank you for listening.